The galaxy learned to fear humanity for a simple reason. Not because humans were the strongest species it had ever encountered. Not because they possessed the most advanced technology. But because every time they were cornered, they did not respond in a predictable way. They evolved inside the pressure of survival faster than anyone could study them. When the first alien probe entered Sol space, it transmitted a warning back to its fleet before it was lost. Do not engage. Their systems change faster than our understanding can follow. That warning was ignored. The Varix Dominion arrived in Earth orbit with confidence forged by centuries of conquest. Their warships hung above the planet like cold gods, their weapons capable of cracking continents, their shields designed to resist anything the known galaxy could produce. They issued a demand for surrender. There was no reply. At first, they assumed communication failure. Then arrogance. Then defiance. On the final hour of their ultimatum, their fleet began to fail. It did not begin with explosions. There were no incoming missiles. No visible attacks from Earth. Instead, systems simply stopped obeying commands. Targeting arrays recalibrated themselves into useless loops. Navigation systems redefined their own coordinates. Shield matrices locked into harmless configurations. Weapons refused to recognize valid firing sequences. Within minutes, entire warships drifted helplessly in orbit, their crews staring at consoles that no longer responded to them. On Earth, deep beneath the surface, no one celebrated. There was no victory broadcast. There was only a quiet network of engineers and analysts watching data streams converge into a single pattern. They called it signal bloom. It was not a virus in the traditional sense. It was a self-rewriting logic pattern that adapted itself to any system it entered, reshaping it until it aligned with human-defined parameters. The alien fleet had not been destroyed. It had been rewritten, and then quietly shut down. The galaxy did not understand this at first. They tried to classify it. They tried to isolate it. They tried to counter it with analog systems, believing digital dependency was the weakness. So the next wave came differently. No networks, no artificial intelligence, no connected systems, organic computation, mechanical navigation, isolation protocols, everything designed to prevent infiltration. They landed troops instead of ships, expecting conquest through force rather than systems. Armored forms descended onto Earth's surface across multiple continents. Perfect biological soldiers, adapted to resist radiation, toxins, and most known pathogens. For 2 days, nothing changed. The invaders advanced inland, encountering little resistance. Human forces retreated in patterns that seemed almost careless. Then the behavior of the invaders began to shift. It was subtle at first. Minor hesitation in command execution. Delayed responses. Slight confusion during engagement decisions. Then coordination began to fracture. Soldiers that had once advanced in perfect synchronization began to hesitate when given orders. Some stopped mid-action. Others redirected themselves without explanation. Within hours, entire units were no longer fighting. They were evacuating civilians, establishing protective perimeters, avoiding lethal force entirely. Commanders attempted overrides, but their authority no longer translated into action. The change was not external. It was internal. Neural patterns had been influenced at a level beneath conscious thought, subtly altering decision pathways without erasing memory or identity. The invaders did not lose their intelligence. They lost the will to use it for aggression. Across intercepted communications, alien analysts described it in confusion and fear. It is not control. It is reinterpretation of intent. Human researchers never called it a weapon. They called it resonance alignment. A field effect that adjusted cognitive reinforcement patterns just enough to shift behavior without breaking the mind. The galaxy began to understand something uncomfortable. Humanity did not destroy enemies. It redirected them. The Council of Species met in emergency session as reports multiplied. Entire fleets disabled without combat. Entire armies refusing combat without surrender. No conventional countermeasures were effective because there was nothing physical to strike. The humans were not attacking bodies or machines. They were influencing decision pathways themselves. A proposal was made to isolate humanity completely. No trade, no communication, no contact. A containment boundary was established around Sol space. For a time, it seemed to work. Humanity did not respond. There were no further incursions. No expansion beyond their system. The galaxy assumed containment had succeeded. But what they did not understand was that humanity did not need outward expansion to grow. They expanded inward. Beneath the surface of Earth, beyond public knowledge, older systems continued operating. Not artificial intelligence in the traditional sense, but a distributed structure built from accumulated human decision data. Every conflict ever analyzed, every strategy ever tested, every failure ever recorded, every emotional response ever observed. It was not a thinking machine. It was a prediction structure, a living archive of consequence. It did not simulate intelligence. It simulated outcomes. For decades, it had remained dormant in active use, quietly absorbing data from every interaction humanity experienced. Until external pressure triggered full activation. When the next large-scale coalition formed beyond the containment boundary, humanity did not launch fleets. They did not prepare weapons in the traditional sense. They simply allowed the system to engage. As the coalition armada crossed into Sol space, their instruments began to behave unpredictably. Not malfunctioning, anticipating. Navigation systems corrected themselves before errors occurred. Weapons systems activated countermeasures before targets were assigned. Communication networks began receiving strategic data that matched decisions they had not yet made. Entire tactical plans were being predicted in advance and neutralized before execution. At first, commanders believed they were facing an adaptive AI defense grid. Then they realized something far more unsettling. Their failures were not being reacted to. They were being preempted. Every possible decision branch they could take had already been mapped. Every variation of attack had already been accounted for. Every adaptation they attempted was already part of a larger structure that had considered it before it occurred. Within hours, panic spread through command structures. Orders were still issued, but confidence in those orders had collapsed. Because every commander began receiving the same realization through intercepted feedback loops. Whatever they chose, the outcome was already known, and already accounted for. The coalition fractured as ships began to withdraw independently, refusing engagement not out of damage or defeat, but out of certainty. They were not being destroyed. They were being outcomputed in reality itself. On Earth, no celebratory signals were transmitted. There was only observation. The system continued running, adjusting continuously, learning from every attempted intrusion, refining its predictive structure further. Humanity did not call it victory. They did not call it war. They called it understanding. Because nothing the galaxy attempted was random anymore. Everything had become data. Even fear, even retreat, even surrender. Across the wider galaxy, reports accumulated of species refusing engagement without explanation. Fleets turning back mid-assault. Commanders resigning before battle. Entire invasions dissolving before contact. The pattern was always the same. They had already seen the outcome. And they had chosen not to reach it. Eventually, representatives of multiple civilizations requested direct communication. A message was sent to Earth. It did not demand surrender. It did not threaten retaliation. It asked only one question. What are your weapons? The response took time, not because humans were uncertain, but because the answer required precision. When it finally came, it was simple. We do not use weapons to win fights. We use understanding to remove the need for them. The galaxy struggled with that answer, because it implied something far more dangerous than military superiority. It implied inevitability control, the ability to shape outcomes not by force, but by ensuring only certain outcomes were possible before choices were made. After that transmission, no further invasions occurred. Not because humanity enforced peace through domination, but because the concept of attacking them had become statistically meaningless. Every possible war ended before it began. And in the quiet that followed, the galaxy began to write its histories differently. Not of battles lost or won, but of decisions never made. And in every record, one conclusion appeared again and again. Human weapons were never what made them feared. It was their ability to make every enemy see their own defeat before they ever chose to fight.